This is The Clash, where the real world clashes with a true Christian worldview. Join former professional wrestler Chris Whaley, known as the Masked Saint, who is an author, pastor, and teacher that brings his wrestling skills into the squared circle and tackles real-life issues. Along with Jeff Dixon, best-selling author, internationally known teacher, leader, and pastor who is not afraid to tackle the tough issues of the world we live in. Together they form a tag team of wisdom in The Clash.
Hi, welcome to The Clash, where we take a Christian worldview and we just allow it to clash into the culture around us. And when we're done, hopefully we discover some things about life and God and the journey of faith and who we're created to be. Right. I'm Jeff Dixon. I'm joined by Chris Whaley, also known as the Saint.
Yep.
And we are, I don't know, I guess we're kind of your host, adventure guides or whatever.
I like that.
For the next 30 minutes or so, give or take.
Yeah.
With a few breaks thrown in.
Yeah.
Today, this is going to be an episode for us where, this might be intriguing for some of you, especially if you have a church background, because you're going to hear from a couple of pastors today our take on what could be called worship wars, where we are kind of going to go back and forth about, hymns and modern worship music, and we're going to kind of ask the question, is anybody really winning? And in some places, this is a big deal. Other places, maybe not.
This is almost like doing those political episodes that we did because, you're going to make somebody unhappy, with what you say. So this one has that potential because if you're holding on to that, particular view that you have in Christendom, it could be dangerous, but we'll still do it.
Why do you think it is that people get so fixated on the idea that the way that they like it is the only worship that pleases God?
I think there's a lot of people that are like my Uncle Hubert,
Is this a real uncle?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's my dad's brother. He's a great guy.
All right.
And he was great with woodwork and all, and he had a little shop out back that he did his woodwork in, and bought himself a new radio, and he put it on the station that he wanted to listen to. He put it right at the volume that he liked to listen to. He had it all fixed up just for him. Then he pulled all the dials off so that nobody could touch it. And I think that's the way it is.
Made him happy, right?
Yeah. A lot of people, they got that radio and they got everything set just the way they like it, and then they pull the dials off so that nobody can touch it.
Yeah.
Just my thought.
Well, the thing is, for anybody that's been in church a long time, there's been different, different trends in church and church ministry. For a while, you used to hear a lot about worship wars, at least in our tribe, Southern Baptist Convention.
Right.
For a while, that was a really hot and heavy topic.
Yeah.
I don't think it's as hot a topic for churches today as much as it is for individuals. Because we tend to approach churches where we go to church based on looking for the style we like best, as opposed to where has God called us.
Right.
Because it never enters our gray matter or our heart that God might call us to a place that might have a style that may not be your personal favorite.
Right.
And so you end up in a church where they worship just the way you want them to. And that becomes your standard.
Yep.
Well, I laughed at this a few years ago. I heard a worship leader, and it was funny. He meant it as a joke, and it was a joke. That if they're in a fog machine, the Spirit's not moving. It's kind of one of those. And there are churches that every Sunday morning, man, they put that light mist of fog out in the air, so the lights will cut through it, so the stage is lit dramatically, and then I guess that means the Spirit's moving.
Yeah. Well, do you think, I wrote this down, older people usually want the hymns, younger people want the ones with a beat. Do you think that's true?
If we're going to go with stereotypes, sure, right? Because again, that's the stereo typical argument that you hear. And but in fairness now, I mean, in complete fairness, we all know the era that we grew up in, and we knew what we were familiar with growing up. And so, if you're a child of the 30s and 40s, there was a certain type of music, and that tends to be maybe your favorite. And maybe you didn't like the 50s and the 60s when they came along. But if you're a child of the 50s and 60s, you love that, right? So I think a lot of it, I think we end up starting in our own era.
Yeah.
And then in the church world, it's whatever church you first connected to, where you first met Jesus, where you first got involved. That tends to be by default
Right.
where you like it best. And so I think anybody that's been around church a long time, they might be very connected to the hymns.
Yeah.
And if they're newer to the game.
Well, I am, Jeff. I'll be honest with you. I love the hymns because that's what I grew up on, right? And I love the hymns. If you get in my vehicle and when you turn it on, it's going to be on talk radio.
Okay.
Because that's when I'm driving, I just like to be, entertained. And so I listen to talk radio and stuff. And if you get in my wife's car, it's on a station that we're very familiar with here in the Orlando area. It's called the Z88.3. That's what my wife's going to have on. And when my wife and my daughters, they get around each other, it's like, oh, hey, have you heard that new song by so-and-so? Oh, I did. It's so wonderful. And boy, doesn't it just really grab your heart? And I can't get into that
you don't know it.
conversation because I don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah,
now, if they ask me, how sad I've been since Rush Limbaugh died, I could get into that one, but not with them. But that's just the way it is. But I like the hymns because that's what I grew up with, and I think that's a lot of older people.
Well, now I remember, and we went to the same seminary. We actually had a hymnology class.
Oh, yeah.
Where we went in and did you have Dr. Reynolds for that?
Dr. Reynolds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We would get in there and William Reynolds would get in there and he would actually open the Baptist hymnal and we would sing. I mean, we would sing. We would open every class with a song that he chose from the hymnal. And then, because he was the editor of the hymnal, he would go through and give you the story behind the hymn. Now that was fascinating.
That was.
I'll be honest with you, it gave me an appreciation for some hymns that, to be honest with you, I wasn't real enamored with before I got to school.
Yeah.
But once I had the backstory to the song, it had a lot of meaning to it.
It did.
And I mean, I think that's part of why we gravitate towards certain types of music.
Right.
There's the hymns, and then there's the newer songs, and then there's the songs that we don't even understand what they're talking about. But all of those are out there. We're going to come back and we're going to continue talking about worship from a perspective of two guys that have hung out in church a long, long time. We're going to talk about the worship wars and kind of where we see the worship wars of today going. Hi, thanks for not leaving during the break because, well, I'm obviously trying to get you to buy something. I really am. If you're anything like me, middle of summer, sometimes it gets really hot. We film here in Florida. It's hot all the time. And every once in a while, you'd like to take a little bit of a break. Get a little Christmas spirit going in your life. If so, I have a suggestion for you. I have written a novella based upon the characters that show up in my novels. It's called Then Christmas Happens. It's available in the exclusive paperback edition, the collectible hardback edition, or if you're lazy like I am and you want someone to read to you, you can also get this book on Audible in about an hour and 10, 15 minutes. Hear it, read it, and get a little Christmas magic happening in your life. To get it, you have to go to Amazon, look up My Name, Jeff Dixon, and then let Christmas happen in your life. During this break, I want to ask you a question, Chris. Tell us and our audience how you came to know Christ.
Jeff, I was not born into a Christian family. Like 6 years before, my mom was a Jehovah's Witness. I actually came to know the Lord my freshman year of college. And at that point, I'm not going to get into it, but I had really done a lot of things to mess up my life. And I love that passage from Jeremiah 18:1-6, because, God told the prophet to go to the potter's house. He'd teach him a great lesson. And when he went there, the clay was messed up, but he put it back on the wheel. And that's the story of my life. When I had messed up my life, God took me, put me back on the wheel, and he made me into a new vessel. And that was the day that things changed in my life, when I gave my life to Christ.
Wow. All right. That's a break worth listening to. Welcome back. We are continuing our worship war, where we're talking about older songs, newer songs, the battle that takes place in church about what gets sung or doesn't get sung, and we're going to try to figure out if there's anybody really winning at this thing called the worship wars. Let's talk for a minute about hymns, right?
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, I grew up in an era where the hymn book was a part of. I mean,
Right.
That's all you had in worship was a hymn book.
Right.
Maybe you can help me with this. I never understood why a hymn had 5 verses.
Right.
We would sing the first,
I know where you're going.
the third, and the fifth. I'm now 30, none of your business, but I'm now at that age where I don't know what the second and fifth stanzas were all about.
Yeah.
Why did we do that?
I don't
Why did we
know.
bury those things?
I was going to say the same thing. I thought that was, we're going to sing the first, the third, and the fifth verse. And I don't know the second and the fourth verse.
Where are the
why
rest of
come
these verses? Yeah.
Yeah, how come we don't
why are they
do
even
that?
there?
I don't know why they did that. I guess it was a time constraint or something. No, I don't know. Maybe that's all all they knew or whatever. But yeah.
Well, if you know the mysterious second and fifth verse to any song out there, just let us know. Write us and let us know.
Email us.
Yeah, email us and let us know what those verses mean, because we've never even heard them.
Yeah. And why did they leave those out?
Yeah,
I don't
why
know.
did they leave them out?
Yeah, I don't know.
So the places you went did the same thing then?
Oh, absolutely.
They brought this out.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and then how about this one? All right, we're going to stand on this last verse.
How do you stand on a verse?
Yeah,
I never could get on the book. I'd fall off.
I know, but you know what I mean.
what you
Yeah,
mean.
yeah. You always stood on the last verse. I thought, what was up with? Now we stand the whole time.
Yeah, we do. We stand.
Yeah, I have written a new book, Jeff.
Okay.
It's a book of lists.
Okay.
And it's called 100 Songs That We Can Sing Sitting Down and Not Feel Guilty. Yeah, I like that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
I got bad hips. I stand for a long time.
It wears you out, doesn't it?
Oh, it wears me out. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know, as we do worship, we have folks who will stand, and then some who feel that, I can't stand anymore, and they want to sit down, which is great. We don't care. I mean, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, but they look at you when you sit down.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's
not here.
not
We don't do that
spiritual.
here, but yeah.
Yeah, he's not spiritual. He's sitting down.
Well, sometimes maybe it's just because you worship so hard, you got to take a break. Maybe that's what it is.
I guess so. Yeah.
So, do you remember specifically when the hymns began to kind of crash into the more modern, popular, I don't want to say pop, but it really is what it was in the day, contemporary Christian music, CCM? When did that collision start happening that you can remember?
For me, it happened in the 90s. That's whenever, they were singing. Now they're going to sing some songs that are not in our hymnals.
Yeah.
Well, how are we going to sing them if they're not in the hymnals, And then you put them up on oh my goodness, that just drove some people crazy that you're putting the words up
on
there,
the screen, right?
Up on the screen, So when did it happen for you?
Yeah, well, I remember becoming, as a teenager, becoming fascinated with contemporary Christian music as I would hear artists. Mm-hmm. You would hear the hymns in church, but then artists. And I remember hearing Andre Crouch sing "My Tribute." Oh my gosh, I thought that was the most spectacular song I'd ever heard.
Love that song.
I mean, it's a great song, and that was really the first one that I really remember resonating. And then, of course, I remember the emergence of Amy Grant.
Oh yeah,
when she first started to sing, and all of a sudden you had a young contemporary Christian music singer that would sing and
Rise Again.
Oh yeah, Dallas Home and Praise.
Dallas Home, man. How many Dallas Home songs?
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, so when those songs started to hit, though, right? Yeah. I mean, that's where there was really attention for a while, because it was a fair question. Why can't we take those songs that we perform at church, and why can't we sing those songs corporately in worship at church? And obviously, some pieces are written to be solo pieces, no doubt, but. But how do we bring those and incorporate those? And that's really where where the the kind of the war and the butting of heads began.
Yeah.
Because everybody kind of staked out a claim.
Oh, I experienced that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. When we went to the 2 services, right, and I've already done 1 service, I'm tired. You know that because we do 2 services here. And so I'd gone to the office for a moment, freshen up, and then I'm walking back over. And I had this older guy who was really, starting to get upset with the music that we were singing because it wasn't all hymns. Right. And so he's sitting on the bench outside, and he's like a blowed up toad frog, sitting there with his lip out and everything. Walk by, hey brother, how you doing? Not very good. Well, why is that? I just don't like that music they're singing in there. And it finally, I had listened to this guy enough and my attention, my patience level is not really good. And I still remember that morning because I remember what I said to him. I said, let me ask you a question, buddy. When did God stop inspiring people to write hymns? When did God stop, inspiring people to write songs of praise about him? Did it end with the hymns, or is God still inspiring people right now? And he just sat there and well, I don't know. Maybe I better go to some church that sings like I sing. And I said, that's the thing to do, buddy. Find that church. Yep.
Well, I mean, you could have you really played with him and said it was 1972 when Don McLean released American Pie. The day the music died, right? I mean, so yeah.
Bye, American Pie.
But I remember it being, to the point then, and this is the intriguing part. It still, as a pastor, is intriguing to me, because we're churches, and probably some of you, because we have a widespread audience, you may be a member of a church that does a contemporary service, which is all built around the idea of contemporary music,
right,
and a traditional service.
Right.
Now understand, when we put that brand on a worship service, we have branded the worship service, because we don't do a contemporary sermon and a traditional sermon. If you're a good pastor, preacher, teacher, you're teaching the Word of God, you're teaching the message that Jesus lays on your heart.
Right.
So the brand really is a brand for the music style alone.
It is.
And I wonder sometimes, and of course this is where I'm a little bit crazy, because we don't do that. We don't have a contemporary and a traditional. But I wonder sometimes if we, even in doing that, we have done worshipers a disservice. Maybe we've even offended God just a bit, because we're basically branding the style of worship that we are committed to, instead of just really putting the focus of our worship on God. Is that possible? Have we done that?
Buddy, I think you nailed it. I think you did. It's definitely...
We still have a lot more show to go. If I've nailed it already, though. I mean, what are we going to do?
Well, it's time for a break. That's why I said that.
We are. Okay. All right. Well, since we've nailed it, we still are going to take another break and come back, because we have another 8 minutes to kind of entertain you guys. But we'll start there when we come back, and we'll kind of talk about that a little bit and unpack a little bit more. But don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Worship Wars will be here in a minute. In the Bible, the church is called the body of Christ. Hopefully, you have a place that you call home when it comes to church. And hopefully you attend there, and hopefully you find a connection with other people. But also, we live in a world where we are connected digitally. And online, you're more than welcome to come visit the church at 434. That's where Chris Whaley and I are part of that staff. The website, touchandchange.net, touchandchange.net. Use the QR code to get there. You'll find all sorts of resources that will help you in your journey of faith. We look forward to seeing you at the church at 434.
Jeff, did you ever in your wildest imagination think that one day we would have this great TV show called The Clash, and you could actually buy T-shirts and stuff that had The Clash on it? Did you ever think that possible?
Yeah, when I was 3 years old, I had a vision.
You did?
That was going to happen one day. No, I'm just kidding. I never thought about that. So.
Hey, it's just awesome, man. I mean, of course, the tagline, "Don't tap out."
Yeah.
On the hat.
Look at that.
Yeah. And then on the back of the hat, it's got The Clash. And I don't know, what you got?
Well, I've been sitting around thinking about, how could you think about The Clash 24 hours a day and at the same time hydrate.
Oh, wow.
This cup right there, look at there.
How awesome
Now,
is that?
that's a mini tumbler right there.
Wow.
But you can get a coffee cup.
You know what? I need to get one of those to pour the coffee into it so it keeps it.
You also could get a mug though. If you're a mug guy, you can get a mug.
Yeah.
You get a big taller tumbler that you can walk around. And so when you're walking around drinking stuff with our logo on it, people say, "What is the Clash?" And they could tell you all about the TV show.
So you need to look at that little QR code down at the bottom of your screen, and you just get your camera, your phone out, you put it on camera, and you look at that, and a little thing will come up, and you touch that, takes you right to the store. It's so easy, even I can do it.
There you go. Welcome back to Worship Wars. We're talking about the battle that's taking place in some places between traditional hymns and quote-unquote modern or contemporary music, and how churches kind of get sideways and upside down on this stuff. I think we're navigating it pretty well at this point.
I think so. I think you're doing an excellent job.
Well, I think you're doing well too. I mean, we pat ourselves on the back all for the next 8 minutes. Oh, well, let's keep talking. Well, we were talking about the fact that we brand because we feel like we need to let everybody know. Wouldn't it be? And again, this is dreaming maybe pie in the sky, but wouldn't it be great just to know that you could come to a place and worship, and and you might hear a hymn, you might hear a hymn written to a different tune. You might hear something that you might have heard on a contemporary Christian radio station, or you might hear a song that comes out of the 70s or 80s, but just a very worshipful song. Wouldn't it be great to know you have the freedom to come to a worship service where all of that could happen and it's all worship?
Yeah. You think that's ever going to happen?
Well, I mean, I know that some churches are trying to do that, and I think that's good. I think that's good theology, right? Because again, it's because when you get to the end of the day, if the goal is to worship God, then I think that how we worship in the Word, obviously is a big part of worship. But for some people, and I mean, I've heard worship leaders say this, when we're done with the worship part, we'll get to the Bible study. And in that moment, I understand what they're saying. I've been at it a long time.
Yeah.
But I think to myself, there's someone who needs to go back a little bit and do a deep dive to understand worship.
Right.
Because what we do corporately is all worship.
Yeah.
And that would mean that I think, and this is just me, but I think it all becomes an act of worship, so that it all becomes fair game. I mean, I know our worship leader here has taken and tweaked, what our modern, quote-unquote, secular songs, put a spiritual spin on it because it fit into a theme that we were doing. And, I know in some places that would cause the roof to fall in.
Oh, yeah.
But I think that's just as valid, especially if God is your audience and the song is for Him.
Right. I have a pastor friend that went over to Africa on a mission trip, and he, got to speak to this crowd. And afterwards, the pastor in Africa said, "We have an exorcism this afternoon. Would you like to come?" And he said, "Yeah, I'll do that." And he said, "Well, we got to make sure that the choir is ready to go." And he said, "Oh, okay." And while they were driving there, he said, "Why do you have the choir?" He said, "Brother, Scripture says that God inhabits the praises of His people." And he had this. He said, "If they're not there, it won't happen." And I thought, my goodness, shouldn't that be the way it is in our churches there, that God is inhabiting the praise of His people? And there's still some songs to be written, Jeff.
I think there's a lot.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the thing is, this is where you have to kind of, it's probably a good reflection of where you are in your journey, right? I mean, I think if I read the words of a song off a page, and it becomes a cry of my heart, that's just as valid as looking at a wall or a screen on a wall and singing those words, again, because God is the audience, right? And the Bible says we're to sing the Lord a new song, which means there's a lot of songs yet to be written, and that our life, the expression of our life, is to be a joyous new song, a new expression of praise on a regular basis, which means that hymn that we don't understand the words to, and we don't understand the words to them, because again, if we take a survey, 98% of people in church do not know what it means to raise your Ebenezer. Right?
Raise thine Ebenezer, right?
But we sing it.
Yeah.
And I contend if we don't know what we're singing about or who we're singing about and why we're singing about him, we're not worshiping.
Right.
Because again,
something else you said there that there's a lot of people think that in church they're the audience, and we need to get that across. What you said, God is the audience.
Yeah.
We're the ones that are sending our praise to Him.
Yeah. I mean, and it prepares us for heaven, right?
Right.
Because what are we going to be doing in heaven?
Going to be singing a lot.
We're going to be singing a lot of songs in heaven. So
yeah, and I hope we're all on tune.
Well, don't you think that's one of the good gifts of heaven? Everybody kind of gets in tune.
Yeah. I got to tell you one thing though. Why did we get to the point where the music has to be so loud in some churches? Not our church.
Yeah.
But have you been in, like, I've been to some churches, and matter of fact, I had a friend that took one of those things that measures sound, I forget what they call.
Decibel?
Yeah, like when you go to a football game, the decibels, and it was louder than a football game.
Yeah.
Why did music become so loud, Jeff?
I don't know. I mean, I know some people like loud, so that's probably a personal preference. I know that I've been in worship services where my watch will tell me that the decibel level has risen above safe, and so
safe
I need
level.
to be aware because hearing loss can occur.
Well, my wife and I went to we were at the Strawberry Festival here in Florida a couple of days ago, and we went because Chris Tomlin was there, and it was awesome. I mean, Chris Tomlin was awesome, but it was so loud that I had a hard time enjoying it because of the loudness. I mean, it literally hurt my ears, some of it.
Sure.
And I just, I don't think I'm going to find the answer to that,
Probably
but
not.
I just thought I'd throw that out just to add some time to our segment.
Well, I wish I did have an answer for you. I don't know. And you know what? And sometimes it may be as simple as, whoever's running the sound, their comfort level with it, because again, it stereotypes the audience to just assume that if you're under the age of this, you want the music loud.
All right.
Or if you're over the age of this, you don't need the music loud. When the truth is, if you're over a certain age, it needs to be louder because you're deaf. Right? So, I mean, it kind of helps if the music's louder. So King David in Scripture dances before the Lord. Does he dance in the hymns or he dances in the Hillsong?
I'm not going to answer that.
I don't know. I'm just rolling out the question. I don't know what he's dancing to either. But I mean, I think we have because it became a war, and because we all ended up camping out somewhere.
Yeah.
We probably hurt ourselves and hurt our understanding of worship, and probably hurt ourselves in the church world of communicating what real worship was.
Right.
I guess my encouragement to anybody would simply be, make the worship meaningful. You should be able to worship with a hymn or a contemporary song,
Right.
or anything in between, especially if the words point you to the Father.
Right.
And that becomes where the war should end.
Right.
And then it becomes worship, right?
Right.
Well, we're out of time. So we got done, much quicker than I thought we would.
Yeah, we did.
So thanks for joining us. And any advice before we check out for the day?
Well, the best advice that I can give you is don't tap out.